remember to silence your phones, and if you would, before you speak, if you have, if the spirit moves you, please fill out a card so we know who you are and where you're from, and that'll help us keep the records in the minutes. If you would, I'd like to start the meeting as we typically do with a moment of silence, so please join me in a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. And now, if you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Is there any old business, Mr. City Manager?
No, sir.
Okay, consent agenda. Any council member like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Would anybody from the public like to discuss consent agenda items 2 through 5? Seeing none, let's close that public opportunity. And a motion would be in order if anybody doesn't have anything more to say on it.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, motion
A second.
and a second. Laura, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison. Aye. Councilmember Wurzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Approved. Now is the public period. Anybody would like to address the council on any item that's not otherwise on the agenda? Now is the time. Anybody else?
Oh, yeah, but not me today.
Not today? Okay. Anybody else? Nothing? Okay, let's close the public period and move into discussion. We have an item regarding Independence Lane North and design. Mark, would you like to bring this up?
Absolutely, yes. As you recall, on September 11th of the last year, the City Council approved a scope of services with CPH Engineering for design and construction engineering inspection services for the north extension of Independence Lane from Horatio to George. CPH has been working on that ever since. They've made 60% plans, and they provided those and some exhibits tonight for us to do our initial review on. Just so you know where we are, the plan's already gone through a staff review and provided to our construction manager, which will be Burkhart Construction on this project. So we've already done our first round of comments and gotten them to CPH so they can move forward on this. As you probably remember, we do have some time constraints we're working on here because under one of the purchase and sale agreements, we agreed to be under construction with a year on the closing of the right-of-way. So we're trying to work as expeditiously as possible to move through the design and get to that 100% construction plan phase and the GMP for the project. It's a little bit easier this round than it was with the first phase of Independence Lane right outside the windows here because what we're doing is basically matching what we did out here on Independence Lane. So we are doing an enhanced treatment of the Horatio intersection with Independence Lane. Landscaping as out here is primarily of live oaks, sable palms, and ground covers that we have out here. One of the changes that was made several years ago when we first talked about North Independence Lane is that it was going to be somewhat of a lesser street in design. That was supposed to be asphalt. As we went through the initial discussion design process, we switched that over so it'll be using the same paving treatments as out here, the clay brick pavers, so it'll match from the actual street treatments. Street furnishings, we use the Maitland standard street furnishings with the benches and bike racks and trash receptacles. Pedestrian street lighting will match what we have out here, which is enhanced lighting. It's only used on Independence Lane. It's the standard we use for downtown for Independence Lane. Sidewalks are going to be wider than our standard sidewalks, so we do have some right-of-way constraints that we're working within, so it won't have a feel as wide of a sidewalk as you have on Independence Lane here. We're talking about a 10-foot sidewalk on one side and a 6-foot on the other. And then it also shows the mid-block access as is outlined in the downtown master plan for the section of Independence Lane. Only one access point on each side of the road, the east and west side, to provide access to the properties. And those have been located mid-block at the property line, so it sort of provides access to our site, Presbyterian Church site, the Truist site, and the sites to the south. So everything is consistent with the first phase of Independence Lane. So what we'd like to do is to this is sort of a check-in, sort of holds us to our schedule and allows the City Council to provide us any input that you would have to do any course correction in terms of the actual feel of the street before we move forward to 90% plans and getting all the construction costs together. So with that, turn it back over and take any input you might have. Like I said, it's a lot easier this time because, as you recall, for those of you that are here, we went through 2 design iterations on Independence Lane Phase 1, one that was very different than we have here and very much more expensive. So now that all those design decisions are made, it makes the Phase 2 a lot easier in terms of moving forward to construction plans.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Does anybody have any questions?
The curb cuts, the 2 access points on both the north and the east and the west, what do those align with? What's the placement idea there?
The idea is on the west side that straddles the property line between the city property and the Presbyterian Church property, so giving access to both properties. And on the east, it straddles that line with the Truist property and then the properties to the south. As you know, the properties to the south are still a little bit of a mixed bag, but to provide the best access to the best property to all the properties, those were the more logical locations.
So when you say straddles the property line, does that mean that each side owns 50% of that access point?
Well, it doesn't. That's all within the right of way.
No, but
that's where we'll be requiring them to access Independence Lane if they choose to access it.
But once it goes inside the property,
yeah.
so each side will own 50% of the road inside the property, so they're going to have to give easements back and forth to get to that road.
Yeah, it'd be joint access, much like we've done with properties that are redeveloped up on Maitland Avenue, so there'd be cross access and joint access to those adjacent properties.
Have we worked that out on our side?
No, we haven't, no.
I think we should do that.
Yeah. What do you mean, work it out?
Well, you're putting an access point that's in the middle of property, so you're going to have unless you do something about it, you're going to have no right for half of it once it gets inside the property line.
Won't always be property
Am I missing something?
Well, I think maybe I'm missing something. If we put those access points in, I see, on the private side.
Once you get on the private side, you
okay.
only have control of half.
Okay. All right, I see what you're saying now. Yep.
You got to work it out.
Okay.
I would do that now before you.
Yeah, we'll have time to take that into consideration as we're working towards those 100% plans.
Because once you get inside there, then where do you go? I mean, I don't know if that hits a bunch of trees as it sits, but I would start thinking about what we're going to do, at least on our side, that we can control, at least a portion of it.
Okay.
I would start thinking about how we navigate that access point and how you get there and what internal circulation looks like. Because the plan there is to keep it as a parking lot for now, am I right?
Yes, on our side,
On
yes.
our side.
Actually, on ours and Presbyterian Church side.
And so that will connect to, there'll be, I'm assuming, some form of an access road that'll keep running north and south paralleling, for at least for now.
Yes.
To get from our side to and vice versa.
Yes.
So to Mike's point, was part of the agreement with the church that we would provide them access off of Independence?
Yeah, that was during discussions of the right-of-way purchases, we talked about providing access to the properties as part of this because they're familiar with the downtown plan.
Legal access or just a way to get in and out?
The way to get in and out.
So we could move that and put it all on the city's side of the property, and then we just provide them an easement directly.
That would be an option, yes.
So Mike, when you say work it out, how would that be worked out without consulting the property owners?
That's the thing, you gotta consult, you gotta work that out with the church now. You don't wanna build this access point and not resolve having easements back and forth so that each side can use that access point. Because once you get inside private property, you're trespassing.
So the requiring them to have joint access easement as a means of.
It'd be reciprocal. So you would establish, again, we can consult our lawyer, right? So I don't want to put it, but you would put it together an REA or some sort of reciprocal easement agreement that provided for cross access along common access roads as they exist, and not bind each other to have those specific location other than that, obviously that initial point, which that initial 10 feet, 15 feet, whatever it's going to be, obviously no one can move. That has to be a for sure access common area for both sides. And then beyond that, let everybody control what's within their own property. I'm sure we've all done this before. So this is, but we should do that now and not build this and then have to deal with it after the fact, because we know that doesn't work. We're dealing with that right now. So I would work that out now and not in the future.
Yeah, we still have time to make that happen.
Yeah.
So I have questions about how it looks like this stretch of Independence right here. When we put Independence in here, we had a lot of electrical outlets, a lot of kind of electrical infrastructure underneath there. Is there any thought that we're going to have to do that in the stretches? Will it be the same?
Yeah, we have a 60% electrical schematic that we're coordinating with Duke on how that's going to work out. And we're still planning on providing the electric like we have out here in the landscape areas, so we'll be able to dress it up a little bit. The only thing that's really different is the catenary lighting.
Right.
We're not including in phase 2.
So that's what was going to be my next question. Was so it's not going to be included, but could it be an add-on later? I mean, you would have the ability to do it. I guess first you just have to have the post, and then you have to have the electric, and then. I remember that was incredibly expensive.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
So we could leave that to a future council to worry about that. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? All right. Any other questions from Mark on this?
And just the same, I guess the same concept would be to the north. Is there, I mean, when y'all looked at this, did CPH have any conversation as to whether or not it's better to have access points line up versus being not lined up?
Yeah, in a perfect world, you want to line up as best as possible.
Okay. I didn't know if on a street that is meant to be more pedestrian-like, if the idea was it's better to have them matched up or it's better to stagger.
It creates more of an intersection feel, so you have a little more control there.
And when we put that in, is there an existing curb cut on that piece that goes to, if the road doesn't, they have an easement there, the properties to the east, right, the east side properties. Do they have rights to have an access point? Is it mandatory, as Lindsay commented, do we have to give them legal access onto Independence?
I would have to look into that, I'm not sure.
Because if we don't, and even with the church, I would want the ability on both sides to close those access points if we wanted to do street activities.
Okay.
So we would give both sides. So on the one we control, and to Lindsay's point, if it makes more sense to shift it 10 feet so it's all on our property and then we control the access point, or we do it in a reciprocal easement agreement where we just, but I would then say on the property for the creation of that access point, which I'm sure that property owner will like, that we have the ability to close it for whatever kind of street activity we want.
Okay.
Okay, you come back to us with 90s or?
We'll come back with 90s contract construction plans. Yeah.
All right, how long do you think that'll take?
Probably another 2 or 3 months, because again, we have to be under construction by September.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Well, let's move on then to reports. Mr. City Attorney.
Briefly, I think you were not here to hear me rail on about the injustices of the legislature, but the others were. And so I'm happy to report that the DPR bill that I fussed about last time has died. But in Tallahassee, every bad idea comes back, so it may not be dead forever. And there is a Live Local Glitch Bill, SB 328, that is now for the governor for signature. If in fact he signs it, I will put together a briefing or a memo that covers the changes. A lot of them have to do with how the tax exemptions are going to work. But there's one that has to deal with residential height, how close you are to a residence and how they would measure height for the highest building. It's no longer within a mile. If you have at least 2 sides that are residential within a certain distance, then you measure height by the highest building that's adjacent to you, or 3 stories, or 150% of the highest building, of whatever the highest building is in your, or next to you, whichever is higher. So that's different than within 1 mile, because down here, our downtown is certainly close to residential. And so that's a helpful thing. And I'll put all that together. If the governor signs it, then I'll have that to you guys.
We're actually exempt from Live Local, right, because of our size? We're too small?
I don't know. I haven't checked your population. I'm not sure. Where are you now? 19? 20? So you might be.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. City Manager.
Nothing, sir.
Nothing? All right. Clerk? Okay. Anybody in council have any reports?
I'll just share that I was over at the library yesterday. The library board's trustees were giving tours of the library to interested residents who wanted to come over and see the building and really kind of get a visual storytelling of exactly why the old building needs so much work and how that's going to happen. And some of the trustees were on hand to talk about their thoughts on that, and Stacy made cookies, and I'll just say I was there at an impromptu situation, and I ran into 3 people that I know, and my daughter had some of her friends who happened to be there, and they all ran around together in the kids area, and just a really big reminder that it really is a social gathering place in our community, and what a really important part of our community our library is. And so I hope and encourage all of our residents to make sure that they go out and exercise their right to vote next Tuesday, and that we have great turnout for people to show up and support our city.
Okay. Thanks, anybody else?
Yeah, I attended our Metro Plan Advisory Board Commission meeting on Thursday, and a couple of notes, which is interesting. March is Bicycle Month in Florida, because it's so warm. We do it earlier than others. But so far this year, there have been 728 reported bike accidents, 67 serious accidents, and 22 fatalities. And that's just the beginning of this year. What are we in the 2.5 months in? The biggest cause of bike accidents are bikes that are riding against the flow of traffic on sidewalks, and the cars come out and they're looking this way to make the turn to go that way, and here come bikes, and that's where they get hit a lot. So the good news is there will be an extension also of the Center Expressway lanes going north towards Tampa. And starting next year, I think they will start doing the studies and everything to extend those lanes. So, 2 more lanes to help get us to Tampa instead from 2.5 hours to 2 hours. Vision Zero is creating a task force, and they're identifying the 30 of the most dangerous spots in Central Florida. So that's being done, and they also created, I gave everybody here one of these. This is really nice. They have an outreach program that they're doing. They're going around to different towns and cities and doing like their farmers markets and festivals. I talked to Jay about, maybe we reach out to them. He said they were here a couple months ago, maybe invite them again. But yeah, they'll be out just talking about this and handing these out. So yes, so that is, and I gave Stacy some to take to the library and Jay some to take to Mayo Park. So we already got them out and about in our community. And if anybody ever wants more of them, they want to do it themselves at home, you can go on to their website, and there's a PDF on the Vision Zero website that you can just print them out.
All right. Well, thanks, Vance. Thanks for also attending those meetings and representing Maitland. Appreciate that.
Yeah, one part wasn't there.
I just wanted to say that I had the privilege of chaperoning a first grade Domrick field trip to the Maitland Library, which, so thanks to Stacy to opening that up. The kids thought that was cool, and they got a little history and all of that. And we also had a picnic in Quinn Strong, so I was able to, tell people that that was the proposed location of the new library. And then we also went to the fire department. So thanks to Chris to opening that up. It was super fun for a bunch of first graders, and a lot of the adults, the teachers on the field trip weren't aware of any of the things that were back there, like the Art and History Museum and all of that. So it was a nice opportunity, and they hope to keep doing that. So thanks to everyone who helped that happen.
Awesome. Okay. And a week from tomorrow, of course, is the vote on the library. I think that's really about the only thing that remains on that ballot. So make sure you tell your friends and neighbors to get out there and vote on Tuesday. You can vote early at the Winter Park Library or other place, any place in Orange County that has that. I would welcome the incoming chairman of the Winter Park Library Board, who's sitting with us tonight, Bob McClellan back there, and he's hopeful that this referendum is successful, and we can work with Winter Park to figure out how they did it, how they're doing it right, and what lessons we can learn. And thanks to Stacy for all that she's been doing lately with handling all the issues with regard to the upcoming election. It's going to be a big decision for Maitland, and I hope that we decide to build a new library. With that, I think that's it. Does anybody else have anything else? Okay, we are adjourned.
Is that a record?
Yes.
No.